Picture a construction site, good crew, strong materials, power tools ready to go, but nothing moves without approval. Every task has to go through the site supervisor, not because the workers aren't capable, but because someone has to decide what's safe, what's allowed, and what gets postponed. Now imagine that supervisor hasn't slept, is surrounded by noise, keeps getting bad reports from other departments, and is constantly worried something's about to go wrong. What happens? Work slows, decisions get conservative, anything that isn't essential gets delayed or denied. That's today's dungeon. Welcome back to the Mail System series, where we stop forcing outcomes and start fixing the systems that decide whether anything happens at all. I'm your host, Barbosa, still carrying the party, still explaining things that should have been obvious by now. Today we're talking about what I'm calling the control center, and let me be very clear about what that is. The control center is your brain and nervous system working together. Your brain receives information, your nervous system delivers it, checks conditions, and reports back. Together, they decide one thing over and over all day long. Is this safe enough to allow? Not emotionally, not morally, logistically. They're constantly checking, do we have enough energy? Is blood pressure stable? Are tissues responsive? Is inflammation under control? Are signals clean or noisy? And if the answer to enough of those questions is not really, the control center doesn't argue. It doesn't explain. It just says no. If you clear this dungeon, here's the loot you're walking out with. First, you'll understand how the brain and nervous system actually decide when something gets the green light. Second, you'll see how stress, inflammation, and signal interference make that system overly cautious, even when everything else looks fine. And third, you'll understand why performance issues often aren't about ability, hormones, or effort, but about approval never being granted in the first place. Most men assume something is broken when the body doesn't respond. In reality, the request was reviewed and denied. So today we're stepping into the trailer, we're looking at the clipboard, and we're figuring out why the green light isn't showing up when you expect it to. Dungeon's open. Let's clear it. Let's stay on that construction site for a second. The supervisor isn't emotional. He's not lazy. He's not trying to ruin anyone's day. He's doing math. He's looking at power levels, crew condition, equipment reliability, and the risk of something going wrong. If too many things look unstable, he doesn't shut the whole site down. He just delays anything that isn't critical. That's how your brain works. Your brain's main job is not performance. It's not pleasure. It's not confidence. Its job is risk management. Every second, your brain is checking signals coming in from the body through the nervous system. Things like how much energy is available. Is blood pressure stable? Are tissues responding smoothly? Is inflammation low enough? Is the environment predictable? It doesn't need perfect conditions. It just needs acceptable ones. And when those conditions aren't met, it quietly moves things down the priority list. Digestion required, breathing required, heart rate required, reproductive response optional. That's not a judgment. That's logistics. So when men say, my body just doesn't respond like it used to, what they're really saying is the supervisor keeps denying the request. And the frustrating part, the supervisor doesn't send emails, it doesn't give explanations, it just withholds approval. Now let's talk about stress, because stress is like constant radio chatter on that job site. Too many voices, too many warnings, too much noise. Stress tightens muscles, shortens breathing, keeps the nervous system on alert, and from the brain's perspective, that looks like an unstable environment. Even if nothing is actively wrong, this is why guys can be rested and still feel wired, why they can be relaxed but not actually calm. The nervous system never fully stands down, so the brain keeps hearing the same message. Something might go wrong. Don't take risks. Keep resources tight. And once that mindset sets in, the control center becomes conservative, not broken, cautious. Anything that isn't essential gets delayed. Performance becomes inconsistent. Drive fades in and out. Signals get approved sometimes, and sometimes not. That's not hormones failing. That's the nervous system keeping the brakes lightly pressed. This is also why telling someone to just relax never works. You can't talk the supervisor into approving work while alarms are still going off in the background. The alarms have to stop first. And those alarms don't come from nowhere. They come from inflammation, congestion, poor recovery, and systems we've already covered in earlier dungeons, which is why this control center dungeon doesn't exist on its own. It reacts to everything upstream. In the next sections, we're going to connect this directly to hormones and blood pressure and show how the brain uses those signals to decide whether to green light a response or quietly shut it down. That's where most men get misled, and that's where we're heading next. This is where most explanations go sideways. Hormones get treated like the boss of the operation, like they walk in, slam the desk, and make things happen. That's not how it works. Hormones are messengers. Think of them like work orders. They don't build anything. They don't move anything. They don't force outcomes. They carry instructions from the control center to the rest of the body. Now go back to the construction site. You can send as many work orders as you want. If the site is chaotic, understaffed, or unsafe, those orders don't get acted on. They just pile up. That's exactly what happens in the body. When inflammation is high, when tissues are stiff, when nerves are irritated, the message still gets sent. It just doesn't get received cleanly. So the body needs louder signals to get the same response it used to get quietly. That's when guys say things like, I feel flat, or my drive isn't what it used to be, or it's there, just inconsistent. It's not that hormones disappeared, it's that the environment stopped cooperating. And here's the part that matters. Raising the signal without fixing the environment doesn't solve the problem. It just makes the control center more cautious next time, because from its perspective, well, it tried approving work and conditions still weren't right, so it learns. And learning looks like pulling back. Now let's talk about blood pressure. Without turning this into a medical lecture, think of pressure like hydraulic force. Too low and nothing moves with confidence. Too high and the system risks damage. The control center is constantly monitoring this because pressure tells the brain whether tissues can respond smoothly or whether things are about to get risky. When inflammation is high and vessels are stiff, pressure becomes harder to regulate. It doesn't spike dramatically. It just becomes unpredictable. And unpredictability is a red flag. From the brain's perspective, that means don't approve optional tasks right now. So again, the response gets delayed or denied, not because something is broken, because the system is protecting itself. This is why performance problems often show up before any official diagnosis. The control center sees instability early, long before charts or numbers catch up, and this is also why men get frustrated. Told everything is within range, but their body is clearly not cooperating. Both things can be true. Numbers can be acceptable. Conditions can still be suboptimal. And the control center always cares more about conditions than numbers on a page. In the next sections, we're going to tie all of this together and show how the control center reacts when multiple systems are slightly off at the same time. Because it's rarely one big failure. It's a stack of small problems that quickly add up. That's where the final picture clicks. Let's go back to the job site one more time. Nothing is catastrophically wrong. No fires, no alarms blaring. But 5 small issues show up at once. One crew is short-handed, another is waiting on materials. A machine is acting weird. Weather's questionable. And someone keeps calling the supervisor with just a quick question. Individually, none of that shuts the site down. Together, work slows to a crawl. That's what multi-system overload looks like in the body. The gut isn't terrible, just inefficient. Cleanup isn't broken, just behind. Stress isn't overwhelming, just constant. Blood pressure isn't dangerous, or just harder to control. The control center sees the pattern, not a crisis, a risk stack. And when risk stacks, approvals stop. Not forever, just until conditions improve. This is why men get stuck in limbo. They're not sick, they're not injured, they're not failing. They're operating in an environment where everything is slightly harder than it should be, and the brain responds the only way it knows how, right? By playing it safe. This is where most advice falls apart. Just push through it. Man up. Discipline fixes everything. That works on a job site until it doesn't. If you force work through unstable conditions, mistakes happen, equipment gets damaged, people get hurt, problems compound. The body works the same way. When you push harder in a system that's already overloaded, you don't prove strength, you confirm risk. From the control center's perspective, you just ignored warnings. So next time it pulls back even faster. This is why brute force solutions fade. You didn't restore trust, you violated it. The control center learns by experience. If approval leads to instability, approval becomes rare. Real progress doesn't come from pushing harder. It comes from removing friction, clean up waste, lower background stress, improve recovery, stabilize pressure. Once the environment improves, the control center stops hovering. Approvals come easier, responses feel smoother, consistency returns, not because you demanded it, but because conditions finally made sense. In the final section, we'll pull the camera back and show how everything we've covered fits into one clear decision-making loop. That's where the dungeon gets cleared. Let's zoom out and look at the whole loop, because once you see this, a lot of confusion disappears. The control center, your brain and nervous system, is constantly running the same checklist. It gathers reports from every system: energy status from digestion, cleanup status from lymphatic drainage, noise levels from stress and inflammation, stability feedback from blood pressure and nerves. Then it asks one simple question: do conditions support this action right now? If the answer is mostly yes, approval happens automatically. You don't feel it, you don't think about it, things just work. If the answer is mixed, approval becomes inconsistent. Sometimes things respond, sometimes they don't. Timing feels off, reliability drops. If the answer is mostly no, approval stops. Not loudly, not dramatically, it just doesn't happen, and this is where men misread the situation. They think something is broken, they think a part failed. They think they need to force it, but what's actually happening is the control center is doing its job. It's saying, I'm not approving optional tasks while the environment looks unstable. That's not punishment, that's protection. This is why fixing one system rarely fixes the whole problem. The control center doesn't care that one thing improved, it cares whether the overall picture improved. Once enough systems clean up at the same time, the decision flips. Approvals come back online, responses feel automatic again. Consistency returns, not because you demanded it, but because the system finally trusts the conditions. That's the loop. And once you understand that loop, you stop chasing symptoms and start fixing environments, which is the whole point of this dungeon. All right, dungeon cleared. No boss fight today. This was a high difficulty logic dungeon. If you made it this far, you didn't just learn something. You picked up tools you can actually use. You unlock the understanding that your body isn't being dramatic or broken. It's making decisions based on conditions. You also unlocked why effort and willpower aren't the gatekeepers. Environment is, and you saw why forcing results teaches the control center to say no faster next time. Now let's talk loot drops, the kind you can use immediately. Loot drop number 1. Before you try to push performance, check the environment. If your breathing is shallow, your jaw is tight, or your shoulders are tense, that's the control center saying conditions aren't ideal. Fix that first. Loot drop number 2. Add one real recovery block to your day. Walking, stretching, light movement, not scrolling, not zoning out. You're not being lazy, you're restoring trust. Loot drop number 3. Stop stacking stressors. Hard training, poor sleep, junk food, alcohol, constant pressure. Pick fewer battles per day. Your body handles stress fine, it just doesn't handle everything at once. Loot drop number 4. When something isn't responding consistently, stop forcing it. Ask which system is adding resistance. Clean up stress, sleep, inflammation, and address that instead. Loot drop number 5. Measure stability, not intensity. The control center rewards predictable conditions over hero days. That's how approvals come back online. That's real loot. That's stuff you can use tonight. Team survived, I took the carry this round. You did the thinking. You keep the XP. Now here's what I actually want you to think about. Looking at everything we covered, stress, cleanup, pressure, recovery, and decision making. Which system do you think has been quietly holding you back the most? And more importantly, what's one thing you've been trying to force? It probably needed better conditions instead. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Not because there's a right answer, but because seeing how different men connect these dots helps everyone understand the map faster. If this episode made something click, send it to someone who keeps saying, I'm doing everything right, but knows something still feels off. I'm gonna go decompress, combine some herbs in a way unique to my herbalist class. Anyway, set fire and have my bar play me off stage left to something with 808s in the mix. Different dungeon next time, higher difficulty. See you in the next run.